Imagine being banished to a place so cold your breath turns to ice before it even leaves your lips, where silence screams, metal groans, and each day feels like a battle against the Arctic itself. Now imagine being told you'll never leave, not for a year, not for a decade, not even in death. Welcome to the dark, frigid world of Russia's deadliest prisons. These aren't institutions of rehabilitation, they're weapons of punishment. Black Dolphin, Polar Owl, Polar Wolf, Fire Island, each one hidden deep in the Russian wilderness. Each one designed not just to contain, but to annihilate the spirit. They symbolize a state policy that values obedience over empathy, domination over dialogue. In Russia, prison isn't a place you go to serve time. It's where time itself is obliterated. Today, we journey inside the walls of the most feared facilities in Russia, where standing for 16 hours is the norm, where punishment comes in the form of ice water and insect swarms, where escape isn't even fantasy, it's suicide. This is incarceration taken to its physical, psychological, and existential extreme. Let's explore the frozen tombs of Russia's incarceration empire. On the border with Kazakhstan lies penal colony number 6, more chillingly known as Black Dolphin. It houses approximately 700 inmates, all of whom are convicted of the most heinous crimes in Russian criminal history. Serial killers, cannibals, terrorists. This is their final destination. Built during the reign of Catherine the Great, Black Dolphin's original purpose was military. It has since evolved into a psychological crucible where the rules are designed not just for containment, but for collapse. Inmates are blindfolded and bent at a 90-degree angle upon arrival. Their arms are pulled backward in a stress position that prevents orientation. They are led through a twisting maze of corridors to ensure they never know the prison's layout. This isn't just about security, it's about stripping away control. The disorientation tactic reduces escape attempts to zero, but it also starts the process of dehumanization. Every hallway is a trap. Every door a barrier, not just of steel, but of identity. The prison's very name comes from a statue of a black dolphin perched near the entrance, a grim mascot chosen not by the state, but by the prisoners themselves. A symbol of captivity hidden beneath an image of freedom. It mocks them daily. Inside, the regimen is unrelenting. Prisoners must stand from dawn until nightfall. There are no chairs, no beds during the day, and leaning against the wall is forbidden. At night, steel bunks are the only reprieve, with constant video surveillance and bright lights that never go out. Even the act of using the toilet requires verbal permission. Guards track every movement, every breath, every deviation. A painted line on the floor marks the path prisoners must walk, a silent leash. Step over it, and the response is immediate and brutal. There are no newspapers, no radios, no windows. Information starvation is just as effective as food deprivation. Prisoners aren't rehabilitated, they are reduced. Daily exercise is a regimented ritual, 90 minutes in a steel cage, while their cells are searched. During this time, guards scrutinize every possession down to the fibers of bedding. The cells themselves are enclosed behind 3 layers of locked doors. In some, surveillance cameras operate 24/7, and prisoners are lit up like exhibits in a museum of misery. Each interaction is scripted. Inmates must report their actions before performing them. Request permission to sit. Request permission to lie down. The language becomes mechanical. It reprograms thought into obedience. Among the infamous is Vladimir Nikolaev, convicted for murder and cannibalism. He not only killed, but cooked and served human meat to unsuspecting customers. Now, he rots in a cell, his name reduced to a number, his crimes becoming part of the grim legend of the prison. Here, the state has perfected a system where forgetting is more terrifying than remembering. Black Dolphin is the full stop at the end of a criminal sentence. But not all inmates are notorious killers. Some are political dissidents, or those wrongly convicted under vague laws. The legal system in Russia often leans toward expedience rather than justice. Appeals are rare. Acquittals, even rarer. In this environment, error is indistinguishable from design. Former guards have anonymously described the toll of working in Black Dolphin. The rigid routines, the unrelenting discipline, they affect not just the incarcerated, but the incarcerators. Some develop psychological stress. Others begin to emulate the dehumanization they enforce. The prison becomes a living organism, feeding on obedience and silence. Black Dolphin isn't just a building, it's a philosophy. A place that doesn't just end freedom, it erases the concept of it. In the icy vastness north of the Arctic Circle lies FKUIK-3, better known by inmates as the Polar Wolf. Temperatures here plunge to -50 degrees Fahrenheit, -45 degrees Celsius, and cold is not an environmental hazard, it's a weapon. Located in one of the coldest inhabited regions on Earth, Polar Wolf doesn't just leverage nature's cruelty, it amplifies it. Prisoners are often marched outside in flimsy uniforms, exposed to elements that could kill in minutes. Guards monitor, not for escape, but for shivers. Flinch from the cold, and you risk being sprayed with icy water. The punishment is not intended to injure, it's designed to dominate. In summer, Arctic insects replace the cold as tormentors. Mosquitoes arrive in dense black clouds, biting relentlessly. Inmates are ordered to remain still, react, and the punishment continues. Solitary confinement, nicknamed the box, is a routine tool for control. Its most infamous occupant, Alexei Navalny, the opposition leader who dared challenge Vladimir Putin, spent hundreds of days in isolation at Polar Wolf. His cell was a coffin of steel and cement. Guards denied him sleep, withheld medical care, and issued threats in whispers. Navalny's memoirs reveal the psychological warfare at play, a mix of silence and violence. Lights turned on at random intervals, screams in the night, his body weakened, his mind unraveled. The state wasn't punishing a criminal, it was attempting to erase a symbol. Polar Wolf is crowded not only with violent offenders, but with political prisoners, journalists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Crimean Tatars. Here, dissent is not a right, it's a defect to be purged. Polar Wolf has transcended its original function. It's no longer just a prison. It's an ideological refinery that crushes belief into submission. The design of Polar Wolf is built around maximum containment. Inmates are separated by layers of steel and reinforced doors. Each wing operates like its own ecosystem, reducing inmate interaction to the barest minimum. This enforced solitude isn't just punishment, it's a dismantling of social instinct. Inmates spend much of their time in cells barely larger than a walk-in closet, with concrete slabs for beds and toilets that double as sinks. Food is delivered through small slots, minimizing human contact. Meals consist of bread, porridge, and cabbage. Meat is rare. Protein deficiency is common. Medical care is available in name only. Prisoners often wait days for treatment of infections or injuries. Navalny himself reported losing sensation in his limbs, while guards ignored repeated requests for a doctor. Requests for medicine or physical therapy are met with bureaucratic obstacles. For many, illness becomes a slow death sentence. Psychologically, Polar Wolf is engineered to isolate not just physically, but cognitively. Communication is severely restricted. Letters are delayed, redacted, or never delivered. Prisoners are denied access to books that do not conform to state ideology. Even religious texts are scrutinized. The result is a total void of intellectual and emotional stimulation. But some forms of resistance persist. Inmates develop elaborate coping rituals, tapping messages through walls, memorizing poetry, visualizing routines from their past lives. These small acts become forms of defiance, not to escape, but to remain human. Former inmates describe the sounds of polar wolf as haunting, not voices, but the absence of them. The hum of lights, the clang of doors, the echo of boots. Over time, these sounds become internalized, looping in the mind like a psychological metronome. In a place where the body is brutalized and the mind is muted, even a whisper becomes an act of rebellion. Polar wolf does not just punish dissent, it freezes it, preserves it in ice until the will to resist cracks and breaks. And the message, always unspoken but deeply understood, is this: you are not sent here to change, you were sent here to disappear. In the remote Yamalo-Nenets region, 60 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, lies IK-18, the polar owl. If black dolphin crushes the body and polar wolf chills the bones, then polar owl reaches for the soul. This is the facility where the Russian state seems to test the threshold of human endurance. Temperatures drop to -58 degrees Fahrenheit or -50 degrees Celsius during winter months. Insulation is virtually non-existent. Some cells have painted on radiators meant to deceive inspectors into believing they meet international standards. It's a cruel illusion. Blankets are thin, clothes are threadbare. Frostbite isn't a medical emergency here. It's part of the daily routine. Cells in polar owl are designed not just for confinement, but for sensory deprivation. The walls are bare, often damp from internal condensation. There are no personal items, no mirrors, no reflective surfaces. Inmates often report hallucinations brought on by prolonged darkness and cold. When the Arctic winter descends, the sun disappears for months, plunging the prison into near total darkness. Meals are utilitarian: watery soups, bread crusts, boiled cabbage. On rare occasions, fish or meat may be served, but it's often spoiled. Contaminated water from rusted pipes causes gastrointestinal illness, which goes untreated. The lack of sanitation is systemic. Buckets serve as toilets, emptied once a day. Hygiene is a luxury, not a right. The mental toll of polar owl is devastating. Letters from families are censored or vanish altogether. Holidays pass unacknowledged. The sound of a door creaking becomes a psychological landmark, a reminder that someone, somewhere, still exists. Prisoners begin to narrate their days to themselves, creating imaginary conversations just to hear language. Some inmates draw clocks on their walls with fingers or scraps, using scratches to mimic the passage of time. In the absence of a schedule, the line between sleep and waking blurs. Days blend into nights, weeks into months. Psychological regression follows. Some forget their own names, defaulting to prison-assigned numbers. Torture is not an exception in polar owl. It's embedded into the institution's rhythm. In 2018, footage leaked from a neighboring prison in Yaroslavl showed prolonged beatings by guards. Though that footage sparked outrage, no such leaks have emerged from polar owl. Former guards and human rights organizations fear that what happens here is even worse, simply better hidden. Reports from former inmates speak of waterboarding, mock executions, sleep deprivation, and even hypothermia used as punishment. One prisoner was reportedly stripped naked and locked in an unheated cell for days, surviving only by pacing non-stop. Guards often act with impunity. There is no recourse. Complaints disappear like the people who file them. Resistance takes strange forms. Some prisoners compose entire books in their heads. Others choreograph imaginary plays or recite religious texts from memory. One former inmate claimed he kept his sanity by visualizing, in perfect detail, every step of his childhood route to school. from the cracks in the sidewalk to the names on mailboxes. Experts in prison psychology say polar owl produces symptoms akin to complex PTSD, schizophrenia, and severe dissociative disorders. Upon release, inmates often suffer from agoraphobia, insomnia, and permanent distrust of others. Reintegration into society, if it happens at all, requires years of therapy, but many choose isolation. After all, they've spent years learning how to be alone. Polar Owl is not simply a prison. It is an experiment in human erasure, a place that measures its success not in rehabilitation, but in the depth of silence left behind. Tucked deep in the Vologda region, Fire Island, or Volогодский Piatak, sits on a windswept isle in the White Lake. Once a monastery, now a fortress of despair, it is Russia's answer to Alcatraz. But here, there is no illusion of reform. This is where the state sends prisoners to vanish. The facility is accessible only by boat in summer or over frozen waters in winter, and both routes are treacherous. The surrounding lake freezes into a solid sheet for several months, but even then, guards monitor the area with drones and dogs. The island's isolation is not just geographical, it's psychological. Inmates know they are completely cut off. Cells originally intended for 2 now house up to 4 inmates, crammed into rooms where bodies sleep inches apart. There is no plumbing. Toilets are holes in the floor. Water comes from rusted pipes. Showers are allowed only once every 2 weeks, and even then, under strict supervision. Food is a barely nourishing slurry, boiled grain, watery cabbage soup, sometimes a few chunks of potato. Protein is rare. Scurvy and malnutrition spike during the long winter months. Medical care is skeletal. One doctor services the entire island, and medications are tightly rationed. Guards rotate shifts frequently, ensuring inmates never build rapport or routines. This constant reshuffling cultivates uncertainty and fear. Orders are delivered like gunshots, quick, sharp, and without explanation. Inmates must respond instantly or risk punishment. Infractions range from minor to imagined, and the punishment is always disproportionate. The prison's architecture reinforces its philosophy. Triple reinforced gates, high stone walls, electrified fences, and a surveillance system that watches every movement. Escape is more than impossible. It is unthinkable. Even the thought of freedom begins to dissolve. But what makes Fire Island truly distinct is its inmate population. These are not just criminals. They are men the state has deemed beyond redemption. Serial killers, war criminals, former military commanders turned rogue. Men like Andrei Golovachyov, the apartment maniac, whose name evokes horror even among other inmates. Coexisting with such figures creates a layered hierarchy of dominance and fear. Violence becomes a language. Alliances are fleeting. Trust is extinct. Social interaction is restricted to brief, supervised sessions. Books are censored. Letters are often undelivered. Family visits, almost unheard of. For many prisoners, the outside world fades into myth. Their lives shrink to a series of routines measured in silence, cold, and endurance. Fire Island's legacy is steeped in darkness. Originally used as a religious exile during Tsarist times, it was repurposed by Stalin during the Gulag era and transformed into a prison in the post-Soviet period. But the core philosophy hasn't changed. It remains a place for making people disappear. Legally, physically, emotionally. Even the staff refer to it in hushed tones. Former guards have described working on Fire Island as a form of punishment in itself. The isolation, the monotony, the ever-present tension. Some leave with PTSD, others with guilt. In 2021, a human rights inspection found signs of systemic neglect, mold-infested walls, evidence of beatings, and hunger strikes covered up by falsified records. But little was done. Fire Island operates in a legal vacuum, shielded by bureaucracy and distance. Rehabilitation isn't just absent, it's forbidden. There are no education programs, no therapy, no religious services. Just time. Heavy, brutal, meaningless time. Time that doesn't pass, but weighs. Inmates stop measuring it in hours or days. Instead, they measure in teeth lost, in scars gained, in memories forgotten. Fire Island is not simply a prison. It is a slow-motion execution, a place where the state doesn't end your life. It just stops it from continuing. From Polar Owl to Black Dolphin, these prisons reflect a deeper philosophy. Punishment isn't just physical, it's architectural, atmospheric, psychological. They are built to dominate not just bodies, but minds. They are palaces of control where the sentence is more than a number of years. It's a descent into erasure.